Hello, my name is John Brink, and today we are podcasting from the central British Columbia and the capital of the North, Prince George, and with On the Brink. And today we have a very, very special guest and a friend, is Vern Martel, and he has an amazing story. So with that, Vern, welcome to our podcast.
You know what? It's great to be here. You know, we've done a couple of things in the prior, and I enjoy doing stuff like this, and anything that people can pick up from the past or learn about my particular sport would be fantastic.
Sounds good. So tell me a little bit about your background. Were you born in British Columbia or in northern British Columbia, or?
Yeah, right here in Prince George, actually.
You were born in Prince George?
Born and raised. Skipped out for a couple of years to the Okanagan, but then come back. Did my schooling out in Pineview, Blackburn, PGSS.
Wow. And then Prince George was, both you and me were here in the 60s. I came here in 1965, and we are sitting here downtown Prince George on what they call George Street, and which used to be part of the center of the boomtown. There were lots of bars here and lots of places of activity, and then in the 60s, Prince George was, as I said, a boomtown. So the common question would be, when did you come here and when are you leaving? But since that time, things have changed in Prince George, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. Much so. I can remember my childhood being here, and like you said, Prince George, or George Street being the boomtown, it was like a neon avenue. You know, it was like a small Vegas.
Right.
How it lit up at nighttime, and the way they did all the lights across the street, and come down as a kid for the Santa Claus parade and everything else. And we love Prince George. I mean, it's a very affordable town.
Yeah.
And that was part of my decision to stay in Prince George and raise my family here rather than going elsewhere. And I have a lot of friends here. Yeah. Our access from Prince George is, we're open to the rest of the world.
Exactly. And there is lots going on, right? So if I look at Prince George, especially when you fly in here, with all the beauty around Prince George and the lakes, there are thousands of lakes all within 5-6 miles from Prince George. And it's an amazing community in terms of all the things that are going on here. And obviously in the last 25-30 years, Prince George has changed a lot. We now have a University of Northern British Columbia, the College of New Caledonia, and all kinds of other things, infrastructure, new swimming pools, and all kinds of things that are happening in Prince George. Yeah,
Prince George is expanding at a very fast rate, I think, and we've seen that trend also happen as far as, the investment as far as big box areas coming in.
Right.
We're probably one of the cheapest as far as land value for investors to come in and buy here. Yeah. So we do see a lot of movement and growth in Prince George.
So you were born here, you were trained here, you got your your youth here and the different schools, and then one of the things that you're known for, and just to kind of give our listeners a bit of an idea about you, you're a very unique individual in terms of what you did, because you followed your passions, you became very active in sport, and then you excelled to a world level in arm wrestling. And we'll talk about that a little bit further as we go. But initially, when you grew up, were you always already into sports right from the time that you were young?
Yeah, it's funny. I'd probably say PE was my best class in school.
Right.
When it come to doing anything running or physical, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was my break in school rather than study.
Right.
I was more of the athlete. And I guess you see that type of thing going on from when you're looking at your kids. whether they have that athletic ability,
Right.
that you can see them going to progress in life. It will always be an active part of their life.
Right.
And it's certainly become part of mine, despite hurdles and challenges. And
Right.
but
So then, from the time that you were young, were you into other sports? I believe you did some soccer, maybe, or and then at some point in your life you became into boxing. You did for a period of time, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So moving, we left here, went down to the Okanagan. I took a lot of Olympic style wrestling down there.
Olympic style?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then moving back up here and then going to Blackburn School was a very tough school.
Tough meaning?
Meaning very categorized in its groups of personalities.
Right.
From, the people that get picked on, the people kind of associated with both sides, and then the guys that were obviously cool, right?
Right.
But they wanted to always beat down somebody.
Yeah, yeah.
And, I'm not a big guy.
But you had to kind of
but I had
stand your ground, right?
Yeah, I had some abilities. And what was very unique about the arm wrestling was a lot of guys used to prove their strength-wise through arm wrestling, whether it be over the classroom table or on the floor or dances and everything else. So at an earlier age, I noticed that, I had a much stronger arm for some reason than a lot of people, which in turn thought that you were tough. Don't mess with him, Don't, he's a strong guy. So I seen a lot of my friends go through a lot of issues, in Blackburn, teachers, everything else.
Right.
But that inspired me to do things like boxing and Hapkido, and then I did do a lot of baseball.
For self-defense to a certain extent?
Yeah, and to build up some type of kind of a inner feeling that I didn't feel insecure.
It gave you self-confidence, right?
Yeah, having the ability to be able to protect myself was a great feeling.
Yeah. So when did you become serious about both wrestling and then boxing and then eventually arm wrestling? Because arm wrestling is well known, but at that point it was not that well known, right?
Yeah, and I didn't even know about that it was a real true sport.
Right.
I thought about it that here I can pull over a bunch of guys. In almost every sport that I've been in, we always ended up arm wrestling. And so it was just whether it was the wrestling or the boxing or soccer or baseball, we'd always arm wrestle.
Yeah.
So sure enough, you'd always be singled out like, okay, that's the guy to beat, that's the guy to beat. And that's what happened to me.
So that's kind of like, as we saw in the cowboy movies, that if you're very quick on the draw, then people would challenge you.
Right.
And then to the same and saying, let's see how tough he is. Is that kind of...
Oh, exactly. And I mean, that just made me go out and kind of seek more of it. And especially when I did go to the old Shakey's Pizza House, they used to
Was that on the bypass?
Wrestling. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and they used to run wrist wrestling championships right up there on their stage where they'd have the piano and all the benches and
Bruce
tables.
Strachan used to play there.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I went to that, and and it was out of a bunch of my friends that went and said, you should go to that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to go up against adults here because I'm only like 15 and...
How old were you then?
15.
15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I went into the tournament, and sure enough, I got myself all the way through, come up against the guy who was the winner of the previous 2 years, and held him for 6 minutes.
In Prince George?
In Prince George, yeah.
And you did what?
Held him for 6 minutes. So
held him for 6 minutes, but did that mean you had him down?
Yeah, he was holding and he was trying to put my arm down, and I just wouldn't go down. I just kept resisting and resisting.
Yeah.
And it burnt him out so badly that the guy who always plays second to him turned around and won, and he'd come over and thanked me. He says, I would have probably never got through him if you didn't burn him out. And then it was perfect, because the following year I went back and I won it all. So
why is this, Vern, because as you said, you were not a big guy, not like, is it because the strength in your body or naturally you have?
Yeah, arm wrestling is a lot of tendon strength, hand strength. You got a good strong hand, probably do really well in arm wrestling. You don't have to be a big guy.
No.
There is guys that will work out specifically to be strong, and they're hoping for endurance matches.
Yeah.
Right? But somebody who is more evenly balanced, and at that time I was progressing. I wanted to be a little bit bigger in size and everything, working out, rolling out of bed, 200 push-ups regularly. As soon as I started my day. I used to work at North Central Plywoods, and we had chin-up bars there, and we'd go and compete against the guys all the time with chin-ups. And then it got to be arm wrestling. All the guys there, you had guys that worked for you out at your mills as well. Right? That soon our lives intertwined, and we formed a Prince George arm wrestling team. That we could share our abilities and strengths and kind of capitalize on that to move forward.
You see what I find so interesting about you, and we'll come in a little bit further in some of the other things, is that for a guy your size, you have what we will hear about later, this amazing strength in your body that most people don't have, and somebody would say, do not get fooled by the size of somebody. I was lucky enough too that I have a lot of strength for the size that I was, not quite at your level, but obviously, and it was partially because of the body, the way you are built, and just naturally. And then the second one is that working hard and piling lumber and doing all of that kind of stuff, and working in mills, which is hard, trained you, and then a certain amount of personal training. So then with you, so now you were 15, 16, and then the following year after at Shakey's, again, now you have, everybody knows, okay, that's a tough guy. So there were competitions again at Shakey's, and you won it all?
That's correct, yes.
How old were you then?
I was 16, and that's when I met a lifelong friend, Keith Koenig, who actually ran the Canadian Wrist Wrestling Championships, who worked very closely with Norm and Dave, who ran the World Arm Wrestling Championships.
What was his name?
Keith Koenig.
And was he from here?
He's from Kelowna.
Keith?
Keith.
Okay.
And he used to come up here all the time and put on many, many arm wrestling tournaments throughout
So
BC.
that's kind of where you got the bug.
Yeah.
And then you worked with him, because arm wrestling, other than the obvious, is a lot of technique, not only physically but also mentally involved, and you kind of learn that from him, a lot of it.
Yeah, and I mean that goes into it. I mean, at that point, I kind of chose, okay, here's an opportunity for me to kind of get into a sport that I really was starting to love, right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to almost what you got in your book here with the, having the right attitude and passion, work ethic.
Exactly.
Equals your success, right?
Yeah.
That's what I went. As soon as I seen I could do something, well, then I started training in that way that I could work on my smaller muscle group muscles.
Yeah.
Because those are the ones that are needed for the pulling. And
exactly.
I was a kid that used to lift bricks and everything else, skirting trailers, when mobile trailers were such a big thing of the past.
Yeah.
And even now, but much so more then. And I'd go up and set up trailers, and I'd be packing these heavy bricks around.
Yeah.
Which I really truly think is part of your development. When you do things at a younger age, becomes some of your traits later on in life. Yeah.
So now at that point, so talking about a little bit further, is that I had, in the early 80s, I had a sawmill east of Prince George in the Bowron, about 45 minutes from here, an hour from here.
Yeah.
And I had an amazing group of individuals there that worked hard. And then in the evenings in particular, we had a cookhouse there, and stayed there. And what they did in their pastime is do arm wrestling.
Yeah.
And
so you had like the Ian Leslies and the Brian Skakins and I'm trying to think of the other fella, Marvin Berg and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All big guys, and then we'd get together all the time and start arm wrestling. Ian Leslie become one of my mentors as far as being able to get established in the world of arm wrestling and having some technique, but then learning that technique and then developing a strength to utilize it.
Yeah.
So that it become something that would work for myself.
So now it becomes a study in terms of saying you have the strength, you have to then develop the individual muscles and all the other things around it, the details, and then the positioning, all of that is critically important, right?
Yeah. It's like a game of chess, If you move one man the wrong position, it puts you in a very vulnerable, position in the game. So it's like arm wrestling. Yeah. If you lose out on a certain position in your hand grip or your wrist or your arm, your how you keep yourself at the table, they all come into play. All of them are like a perfect wave of water, almost, I call it.
Exactly. So what we are doing for the people that are watching us is really discussing that how do you develop initially a hobby in a setting where you committed and then end up in an environment that helps you in training the finer parts of it that potentially can bring you to a world level, which it did in your case. And so which as we go further here then from there on in, now you're in your late teens. At what point did you start competing regionally, provincially, nationally?
Yeah, so it would have been when I was able to finally start traveling. In 18, I'd go to Alberta and BC, lots of tournaments, but then being able to travel across Canada, and then even at the age of 19, going down into the States to start competing at the wrist wrestling championships and stuff. And it was in 83 that I won in Edmonton for the first Canadian title that I won.
Right.
Which gave me the opportunity to be on part of Team Canada to go to Costa Rica for the World.
So that was Costa Rica.
Right.
So that was really your breakthrough in Edmonton that then put you on the Canadian team to go to the World Championships in Costa Rica.
Correct.
Was that 83?
83.
83. And so I've been in your garage and a trophy room, unbelievable, pretty much the size of the room that we have here, and all you see is trophies from all over the place over all those years. The whole garage is full of them.
Yeah.
Amazing. Anyway, so this is the early start. Now you're in Costa Rica. You were, so the other part about arm wrestling is that if you're a good arm wrestler, that doesn't mean you are, and they judge you on the basis of left hand, right hand. If you're good at the right hand, doesn't mean you're good at the left hand. So what did you compete for in Costa Rica?
So I actually competed in both classes, both left and right.
Okay.
And I was a 135, but we had a guy in that class already. So I said, well, I'll jump up to 143 and see how I do.
That was the next weight class.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I ended up winning, and that was the open class down there. And I ended up winning, and that's when I come back to Prince George here. And they actually let me know, Steve Sintage, a long time ago, went and presented me with an award for the first world title out of any sport brought to Prince George.
Yeah.
And so, it was like, something I never ever realized. I never thought that arm wrestling would be something like that.
Yeah.
But
so was that in both arms?
Both arms.
And those are individually, right? So
Right.
you either one or both, or yeah. And that was in a weight class that was higher than you should have been, but somebody already was in that position from Canada.
Yeah.
So you took the next one up, which created even more of a challenge. But you became a world champion.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you then?
21.
21.
Yeah, 21.
Unbelievable.
It was just, when I look back at a lot of things that transitioned through, through the years, I still think it's very unbelievable in a sense, because, when I think at what I had to work with and the abilities, and then the people that I go and compete with, and especially, after obviously getting in a motorcycle accident, and there was a lot of doubt. I proved myself, as a two-armed guy, but then with my accident was a whole new challenge.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So I believe it was in 1985, and that you had a motorbike. You loved riding motorbikes, and it was not an accident where you were reckless or anything like that. But what happened is you rode your motorbike and fully the right thing you did by passing someplace that was allowed, and something else happened. So what happened?
Yeah, so actually I was heading to work. I was on my side of the road. I went up around the corner, and that's when a fellow that was in a car come right across into my lane. Now, because of riding a bike, you lean into your corners.
Yeah.
It was so much split second, like glancing at the driver, seeing an oncoming car, and then glancing again, and then not even seeing the driver. Then it was like, okay, he's coming in my lane. So much was split second thing, and was like, do I bring my bike up and try and jump?
Yeah.
Even with that split second, it was like all I felt was just being slammed to the ground, and remember the darkness of going underneath the vehicle.
Yeah.
Along with the bike, which was a good thing because
it protected you.
Yeah.
Some parts of you.
Yeah. But one wheel went over my arm and my head. Thank goodness they put the helmet laws in back then.
Yeah.
And then over my hip.
Yeah.
And leg.
Yeah.
And shattered both of them very badly.
So you were critically injured, right? So now you're 23, right?
Yeah.
And so you're a world champion on the beginning of an amazing career in the beginning stages. And so all of it ended for all intents and purposes. So you were in the hospital for how long?
6 months.
In critical stage?
Yeah. Well, in critical, I was in for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Then I stayed at Prince George Hospital, and then I got sent out to Toronto's St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, where they did a lot of plastic surgery. And
so now the problem that you had is your left arm.
Yeah.
How was your head?
My head was okay. I had some plastic surgery done.
Okay.
Obviously the helmet broke, and it had some facial scarring and stuff. They did the plastic surgery there while they were trying to do the brachial plexus operation.
Right.
Which they were transferring nerves from the back of my legs up into my brachial to try and get some type of movement within my arm.
Is that in Toronto?
Toronto, and that was all experimental back then. It was not known of, and it was. I was just very lucky that a doctor, his name was Dr. Groper in Vancouver, happened to study with this Dr. Hudson, and was able to contact him. You
were very, very, very fortunate, right? So then the damage on the arm was so severe that you lost the use of your left arm.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And still today, for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, it'll be, unless there's some miracle or something that happens that all of a sudden they can do. I watched transplants. I watched, AI, like robotic type stuff,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, integrating and stuff
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, or these life beds that they're talking about that are
Yeah, yeah.
helping rejuvenate cells. But
Yeah, yeah.
I think I've gotten so used to my arm being like this, I would probably not even know what to do with the second arm now, because
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had to do so much with this arm to
Yeah.
compensate.
So then what happened? Now you must have said, what's going to happen next to me? And then as you kind of rebuild, from there on in, the career is over. There is no more arm wrestling. That's behind you forever. But it wasn't.
No.
What happened?
It's kind of like this underlying thing waiting to happen, you know. Like I went through a lot of, it was very devastating. I went through an emotional roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
Trying to develop self-image again.
Yeah.
I was going out with somebody, lost her as well.
Yeah.
And it was just one thing after another happened, and it was like, okay, wow, where do you go from here?
Yeah.
And then it was, you know, friends reaching out that went and said, you know, do you think we could ever hook up a harness or figure out some type of strap to put you up to the table? And
Yeah, because now all of a sudden it's not one arm wrestling anymore, but the other arm, even if you're not using it for the purposes of stabilize, you need to have that in the right, because it's just virtually as much part of the one arm as the other arm.
Yeah.
The way you hold the table, the way you position your body.
Yeah. So using the ability to, you know, that's why they put a hand peg there, or else they would have always made a one-armed event. But
Yeah.
the peg is there so you can, you know, you utilize your strength across your chest.
Right.
To secure, you know, anything that if you're going to pull it, you have that ability to tighten up and
Yeah.
hold.
Yeah.
And not only that, when you get into certain moves of pulling, it's like an anchor to hang on to
Exactly.
help yourself pull. It'd be like you hanging on to the end of a rope, and you're trying to hang on to that rope, pulling, you know,
Yeah.
pulling on it. It's just, it was, and then not only that, it was just the finding the balance at the table.
Yeah.
Because here you got guys with full ability forcing all their power and throwing it at your arm.
Yeah.
And it was, to try and compensate for that was probably about a good 2-year period of just losing some minor wins enough to keep me interested in trying to go.
Yeah.
But guys that I beat were just slamming me down because of that balance factor and not
Exactly.
being able to stay anchored.
So you had to kind of reinvent the whole sport, really.
Yeah. I had to reinvent my style of arm wrestling.
And then give yourself confidence.
Yeah.
And
it was very challenging, you know, because I went to small events, started winning, and was like, okay, maybe I got something here. I'd work on different styles. I'd go to people's backyards because they wouldn't come to Prince George, so I had to fly out a lot to different places.
yeah.
And this is when it started becoming, you know, national, international, world,
Right.
to see what was out there and what I had to go against. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of the training happened after the tournament. So you
Yeah.
take your losses, but then you get together where you can actually train with these guys and really feel your strength out to see if you even match theirs.
Yeah.
And then it come down to technique.
Yeah.
It really come down to technique.
Yeah.
And over that transition time, I was able to figure out a style that really worked for me,
Yeah.
that even a lot of other people started to kind of mimic, in a sense, with them still hanging on, but
Right.
using a move that I was able to use and make it very forceful at the table for my opponent.
So 83 is the accident. Now you're in 85 likely, and now you kind of think you can be competitive, right? So at what point then did you go back into the real competitions? Did that start on local, provincial, national,
Yeah.
and eventually international?
Yeah.
Over a period of time?
Exactly that same progression.
Yeah.
And it took like guys like Keith, who would always keep coming, you know, bringing me out to events, sending me
Yeah.
flyers. We didn't have internet or cell phones that we could stay in
Yeah.
touch. It was waiting for the mail, waiting for
Yeah.
what tournaments were happening, and then start
Yeah.
checking out where you're going to go.
How did you keep the strength to do that? Because it's just there, you were already on the top of the mountain. And then all of a sudden this happens. And so you're right down there and saying, what is going to happen to my life? Because one thing after the other goes wrong. You lost your partner, your girlfriend, and other things changed. And how could you then still find the strength of character to go and say, no, I can still do this?
Yeah. I think that's where it falls back to. I had a passion for the sport, a very much desire to still compete.
And
I
attitude,
started with
right?
the attitude, okay, what do I need to do? The work ethic behind it as far as, the training that I need to do, from 2 arms to 1 arm, to 1 arm pull-ups, to a lot of 1 arm strengthening, hand training.
Yeah.
Because I had to get that much more better to be able to be an opposite of force for my opponent, and use my ability to outmaneuver them, but also subdue them in their own tactics. And I was able to develop enough strength between lat, bicep, my hand, to pull a lot of people in to my area to stop them, which actually proved to them that I didn't just beat them on what we call a flash, just a straight hit. And whether you're ready for that go or not, match is over. But I would stop a lot of them and then actually get into arm wrestling with them. So it took a lot and nobody ever complained. The referees is one of their biggest jobs is setting up a match where nobody can get a proper grip or feel that they're going to lose right off the bat. Where mine was a very simple low grip set and then wait for them to calm down. But they wouldn't fight me because it was so, they'd have so much what we call top pressure. And here I'm doing a low hand grip that they really thought they'd blow out of my fingers with a very high top where you put a lot of pressure into the top of your wrist. And float onto the person's fingers to open their hand up. But I was ready for that. I was very much ready to cup and develop my bottom fingers to hang on to that movement of that press up to stop it here. And then alternately turn it on them to what I call like a inside but a high top roll.
So you were the one that really knew how to maneuver your hand, the positioning in such a way that what was their strength you turned kind of against them, right? No, it was to me when like I said, it seems such an unbelievable journey of where I went and where I took it to. Took 10 years after my accident. 10.
Actually,
so now you're in 93, right? So and now you're at the level of all of a sudden, what happened to Vern Martel? He's competing on a world-class level, as what they call, and that's where the name comes from, the One Armed Bandit. He was known like that. That was based on you, because you would go after the accident under circumstances that no one could imagine and became again world level.
And it was is memorizing, like as far as I went over to Russia, Moscow, to compete in their large Golden Bear event.
When was that?
And that was in 92, actually.
93, right. I've seen the trophy.
And
amazing.
I went there a couple years, but I had a standing ovation because here I am in the open event here with my class open, not in, because I competed both in what's called it's a handicap event, but it's just more like for those involved that don't compete at the level of to be in the open class type thing. They have some type of physical disability challenge. And so I went in the open class and they saw me competing against other countries. And not only, beating them, but, back and forth like it was a chess move and cheering and it was wild. And they have all Tektronix music, which was very different, with like it's just, getting everybody's emotions up
Yeah.
and up and up and
Yeah.
up. And then finally to win, it was incredible. Like, I still get goosebumps about it.
Yeah.
But, they had entertainers there for us. One of their singers took me out to
Was
the
it in
middle of the
Moscow?
ring. Moscow.
Yeah.
And one of their singers brought me out to center ring, gave me a rose, and said, the people love you. The people love you.
Yeah.
And I just raised a rose, and I'll have to show you that clip. It was just, everybody just went crazy.
Yeah.
And,
amazing.
People running up, getting autographs.
Yeah.
And over there, they hand you fruit and that, because, they don't have much
tradition.
money.
That's a tradition
right?
for recognizing, excellence beyond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd had military soldiers that were passing me their medals and their hats. I have hats.
Yeah, that's another one that they do as a gesture, only in very, very special occasions.
Courage and valor, they were saying. And it was like, wow, I just arm wrestled. But they said, do you realize what you did out there? Like, everybody was behind you. Everybody wanted you to win. Yeah. And that worked out in a lot of different events that people were watching and got very engaged, because here's something different, right? Used to seeing guys compete 2 arms all the time, women, and here's somebody staying at the table, not hanging onto the peg, leaving their arm out there vulnerable for anybody to hit, and and stopping them and then pulling them over. And so I got into that nice elite, top. I was the top guy. I was the top gun to go after in North America. Everybody, I'd go in a tournament, and you'd see them. That's the guy you got to beat walking through there. And they'd size you up. They'd look at your arm, listlessly hanging at your side, and not a very big guy. Yeah. And then they'd get up to the table, and maybe that was some of the shock. But I did arm wrestle some of them afterwards too. So, but to go up there, they had even more confidence on the win, because they knew they were going against somebody who is physically challenged. Yeah. And didn't feel like, especially with my grip, didn't feel like there was going to be much of a match. Yeah. But after that initial hit where they'd hit, you'd just see their eyes on looking at where they were going to go and turn back to me and look at me, where then I absorbed their power and just took it out and stretched out and say, I was able to do it. It was amazing. It was a very amazing ride, and and then I went on to win 13 world titles, and
13 more after that.
Yeah, so 13 in total. 13 in total. Yeah, but through arm wrestling and wrist wrestling, both kind of their own different sport in their sense, just still at a table with a different set of rules, different gripping, different pin pads, and was able to come on top on both of those sports.
And you met some of the most well-known persons as well. Schwarzenegger. Pictures with him.
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone or Sly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, especially with the Arnolds. That was an all-time high actually as well. Yeah. Being able to compete at the Arnolds, and then the first time I went out there, I actually took third. Yeah. Right. So at least I got to know what it was like. And you were there. You were at the Arnold, so it's like 100,000 people venue.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
With all kinds of different sports going on. Yeah. But we were up at the front stage, got to meet fascinating other athletes in their own fields backstage who would be ready.
And they all belong.
Yeah, and exchanging nutritional ideas, or how they trained, or like Monica Brandt. Yeah, a lot of people probably don't know who she is, but in her time, she was one of the top female, competitors in the female bodybuilding. Exactly. And we exchanged ideas. Ronnie Coleman would tell me how he would build up his appetite and burn it off through the day, and so many different ideas that you could learn from and share, and then there was the physical, the people who were physically challenged who would come up and say, how did you do that? How did you make that possible? Yeah. And it created inspiration in their eyes. Yeah. To be able to see something that they could actually get involved in, which now they've taken it and introduced it as an Olympic sport at the Paralympic Arm Wrestling Championships. Yeah. And it's gone out really well. They did the introduction over in Europe. Yeah. So
Is it an Olympic sport now?
No.
Will it be?
Paralympic. Both the association federations are all driving toward it.
Yeah.
To do it, but it's like Taekwondo, you know, where there's the one style of Taekwondo that was accepted, and the other one was not.
Yeah.
Both really the same sport, the same techniques, the same, things that they had to do but they wouldn't comply or didn't meet Olympic, I guess it'd be like Olympic qualifications. And that's what arm wrestling, wrist wrestling was, the amalgamation of those two to come together under one umbrella so that they could be looked at as an Olympic sport because it was one set of rules. So it's still in the works.
But it will happen, I'm sure
I
it will.
truly think, I mean, you go in the pyramids, they have guys arm wrestling right in the, hieroglyphics right into the walls. So it was an Olympic type of a sport back in the day. Guys would win empires over arm wrestling. So it was, it's been there all through us. I think every one of us has arm wrestled as a child, with your fellow friends and buddies or your sisters or your mom, So it's a known, but to what degree, And now internet is really blowing it up, which
is a very good thing.
Because now you can learn things so much faster than waiting for a letter to be sent to you to have a chance. Guys like Dan Gallo and that are all learning. I was very fortunate to be able to train him. But then he took it to the next level of his training abilities and how much he desires to win a world title. I see the same thing that he had, the same motivation and what it's going to take to get there. So one day he will be a world title. He'll win a world title, but it's a lot. It takes a lot.
And like for Dan Gallo, another friend of both of us, and the very, very committed attitude, passion, work ethic, followed success. Now the other thing I was going to ask you about is you have had some more challenges. You had a bout with cancer, and
so that big C word. It's always been a scary word in my life.
Are you comfortable talking about it a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, it took a lot out of me. I mean, I think it takes, when you realize that you do have cancer, it's an emotional
When did that
change.
When did you become aware of that?
And that was actually in 2016.
When?
2016.
2016, yeah.
So, and at that time, it was already at a stage 4. None of this progression stuff. That, small. It had to be big. So it seems like when I deal with things, it has to be big. And again, very fortunate, a very good doctor here, Dr. Lokanathan, was able to do the surgery to take out a lot of lymph nodes that were badly affected. And then I was able to they just transitioned from Chicago and they were doing the studies, blind studies up in Vancouver and Edmonton. I had better access to go to Vancouver, so I decided to go there, and it took a year of treatment, which, in turn, I've been very fortunate to be sitting here today, but in turn, it's been almost taking my head and moving it onto a different body to figure out how it works now. It just doesn't work the same. And, it knocked out things like pituitary, thyroid, adrenal glands, which I take medication for to function through a normal day without trying to excel at a sport. But it's still that desire, that attitude, passion, to still go back out there and try again. And but right now it's like letting the body heal. It's got to heal. I got to learn how it works, and still develop the strength. You're over at my garage, just kind of showing you a couple of the things to try out. And I'm at like about 50% of my strength. I lost a lot of size on the arm that I used to have before it built up, and even that's hard. As you did bodybuilding and everything too, championships. And to see sometimes losing what you worked so hard for is something hard again to kind of get over.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess you got to dig deep in your past and kind of see how it worked before and keep pushing and pushing, taking yourself to the next plateau. Yeah. And what's my next plateau that I'm up against? Yeah. But know that you have that desire and, you know, willingness to face it. Yeah. And to still move forward.
Yeah. How you're okay now, or
yeah, everything's been going pretty good. It's weird because I actually have had another cancer that I was dealing with as well. So it was like, oh, just layer them up here. You know, like, but I've been doing very well. It's enough to keep me working, you know, as a manager at my store and running a crew of people, and you know, my family of 5 kids who are all transitioning, getting married and stuff, and keep my wife busy enough. And, which, you know, I think that's a huge part of being able to be successful too, is having a partnership with somebody who believes in you and truly sees that, you know, you can do this. You know, you're better. You're better than what you think you are.
Absolutely.
And you know, so I owe a lot to Heidi. You know, and she does a lot in her own that she inspires me with the stuff that she does. Yeah. Seeing each one of my kids grow up and do different things, and how they transition. You know, and inspire to be young adults and move on into their own next life.
You have 5 children?
5.
Yeah. So what are the names? What are they doing?
So it starts with Alexis, who's a nurse, Tyson, who's a welder. I got my son Braden, who's a roof estimator. I got my son Austin, who's going into engineering, and my youngest daughter Brooklyn, who you met on your show one time, Martha. Maybe it was Scott's show, come in, because she's a very good friend of Solon's. Okay. Opie from Canadian Tire. They bonded a friendship that they went over to Africa with each other. So So I've been very grateful in life. I've been very blessed, you know, truly blessed. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you're very unfortunate," but I've done things that a normal person will probably never do in their lifetime. No. And so I feel very,
not even close.
Lucky. Yeah. So,
you know, so that makes you so unique, Vern, and that's why it is so important to have you as a guest. You know, so that even in adversity, you know, being able to come back, you know, and then not only be functional, but excel to those levels of world class again is unbelievable, really.
Yeah. Well, you know. Well, thank you. And I mean, you've done incredible feats yourself. You got a book about it. I don't have that book yet, but
you
I can sure tell stories.
I believe you should. You know, so.
But I think we just have to rise to opportunities that life presents itself. Yeah. You know,
and again, you say it as well. Is you know what I say. And a lot of times when I give presentations or wherever the opportunity presents itself, that I say the underlying foundation is attitude, passion. You know, attitude, avoid negative. You know, I don't want people around me that are negative. Right. To me, the glass is always half full. And, you know, and every day when I get up, I say how lucky I am, you know. And then the other one is find your passion, you know, to young people or people in general, you know, that I know some people, they don't like what they are doing and what a life to live, you know, so is...
no direction.
Yeah, and then the other part is work ethic, you know, so, you know, work hard, do whatever you do it well. And I always remember, you know, when I started working fairly young because I was not very good in school, and so was trained to be a furniture maker. And then my dad managed a small lumber mill, and he had this planerman that run the planer machine, and he was an older guy, and I had to pick him up, drive the car, pick him up, and I was just young at the time, about 18 or so, and then bring him back home again in the evening. And so, and he would never say anything and say, hi, and that was about it. And then all the way down, took about half an hour to drive him to where he lived, and then the same coming back, but he wouldn't talk much. But what I always remember is that as I was standing there waiting for him to be ready for me to drive him home, he would clean the machine. He would wipe it down with stove oil, and then and I wouldn't say anything. I'm gonna wait, So, and then before he was at the door and closed the door to the planer mill, he would look behind him, and he would stand there, and I thought, what is he looking at? But I just waited until he was ready, and then he'd be just standing there looking at the machine and say, okay, he's ready to go home now.
Yeah.
Pride.
Yeah.
And what he does and all the things that he does. And I still find that today, when I can see somebody, they may be sweeping the floor, the way they're doing it, that pride that they have in it, and it's a key thing in life of attitude and passion. No matter what you do, do it well, and get the satisfaction.
Yeah, so. No, it's been amazing, and like I said, I see it in the work just like you do, see so many young people come in, it's first jobs, and see them, transitioning into actually young adults.
Yeah.
And then building on, having some ownership of their job, that desire, and eagerness to learn, and because it's so different than school, right? You walk out of that door and life hits you just like bang.
Yeah.
And especially you got bills to pay and everything else.
And is the land of opportunity, where we live here in Canada and in BC, and then in a place like Prince George, Northern British Columbia, there are so many opportunities. We are so fortunate and so blessed. Yeah. So as now you're still working, and so what do you do on the job that you're doing now? You're the manager of
Michael's Arts and Crafts.
Okay.
So I've run that store now for 11 years, and even with my success at work, and work ethics, I was able to win the top award in Canada for the store organization, and then down in Dallas, Texas, and they presented for winning the overall company award for top manager.
Good.
So,
So which company is it again?
Michael's Arts and Crafts.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a craft store, which has been a blessing to most people through all this COVID.
Yeah.
Being stuck at home and being able to have an opportunity to create things again instead of, always being on the phone or on the TV to actually do things with people.
Right.
And, I meet a lot of incredible people.
Yeah.
98% of them were all women of Prince George that shop in Prince George.
Wow.
When a guy walks in my store, he's either got a list that his wife has given him, or he's looking for somebody, because usually guys don't show up. But, so it's always interesting to see that, or bug them, that their wives have got 2 shopping carts full of stuff already. They're like, what? Get her out of that store, But it'd be like us going to Princess Auto or, buying tools.
So you're obviously enjoying what you're doing very much, and then you're still working at getting your strength back. And I saw that you have your gym, and your trophy room. Yeah,
got it all ready, and it's a gradual process. Like letting my body tell me, okay, you're ready for more. You're ready for more. And I've always been lucky. Prince George has been such a great foundation for people in sports and the desire to learn and want to become some part of something. Yeah. All the way through, I've always been able to find training partners, either by going to gyms and then them coming back and being able to pass on what my experience is, or things that I've learned or techniques and what they should work on as far as power.
Yeah.
It's been so amazing. Like I want to get back into the coaching part of it again.
Yeah.
It's just they keep pulling me back to the table and my arm hurts for a week afterwards. So it's like, wait till I build myself up again.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a desire to always put my arm on the table again.
Yeah.
And I don't think that will ever go away.
No.
You know, it was 40 years of my life. How do you make it stop like that?
Amazing. Now, before you go, I'm going to put this on the side. I just want to arm wrestle with you for a minute.
Oh, with my left arm.
No. So because we got to do this, so I'm going to just kind of put this on the side a little bit, because how could I not? You know, so, okay.
So, and I think I was trying to show you, remember how we were, I was trying to show you, like most guys will set up like this, try and twist in. But you do this movement of holding back like there, it makes it very hard for someone to push.
Okay, what should I do to try to beat you?
So you want to get your wrist bent this way, keep your elbow down, and then force your power literally like this, up over your shoulder. So everybody thinks you pull across, but you actually pull up and straight back.
So where am
you're gonna break your wrist out and head towards you that way. And then back over your shoulder this way. So it's almost like a come back. You feel the power going into your fingers. Drag back. Let your whole
what
body
you're gonna do, right?
out.
You're gonna try to get me to go. So I'm gonna try to resist that as much as I can.
But you can see the positioning. It gets down into your positioning. And you can make it so that it seems like you're not really applying a pressure.
Do I have potential?
You have lots of pressure there. It's taking everything I can do to hold you. So.
Vern, it was my pleasure.
Always awesome talking to you. I mean, the stories you have, what you've done, inspires me even. So,
thanks, Vern.
Thank you very much.